Hello everybody and welcome to our Q&A session today. My name is Monica Anderson and I'm a Widening Participation Officer at the university, and I'm joined by our three amazing undergraduates, Lily, Daniel and Chloe today, who are going to be answering some of your questions. So just to start off, they're going to introduce themselves. So Daniel, can we start off with you please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Daniel. I'm a fourth-year mechanical engineering student, and I'm originally from Malaysia.
Brilliant. Lily, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name's Lily. I'm originally from Northumberland, which is just north of Newcastle, and I'm a fourth-year geography student.
Brilliant. And Chloe?
Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm a fourth-year law student, and I'm from Glasgow.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much for being here today, and thank you to everybody who submitted your questions for us today. So just to start off, we're going to look at why did you guys think about applying to Glasgow, and why did you apply to Glasgow? So Daniel, do you want to tell us first why you decided to come to Glasgow?
Yeah, I think it all started off with knowing what a lovely city Glasgow is. I think that's the first thing I looked into, is the city where you'll be studying your course in. I think that's the first thing that I went for. Then I've heard good things about the engineering school here. I have actually a few senior friends that actually study here, both in engineering, medicine, and in all different courses. So I think that helped me knowing what to expect, and just basically having great friends who telling me to come here, basically. So yeah.
Brilliant. So a bit of endorsement from your friends there. Lily, what about you? What made you decide to come to Glasgow?
For me, mainly, I really wanted to study in Scotland. I've always kind of come here on holiday when I was younger, and I had kind of an emotional attachment to it in that sense. But also, I was really attracted to the flexible degree program that Glasgow offers. I knew I really wanted to study geography, but I wasn't 100% sure exactly what I wanted to specialise in. And because of that, I was really attracted to the fact that you can study different subjects as well as different modules across geography. Also, I was just really attracted to Glasgow when I came. I hadn't actually visited before the open day, but I did fall in love with it as soon as I was here. I feel like everyone here is really, really friendly, and it's a beautiful city with lots of green space.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Chloe, what about you?
So I kind of decided to apply. I've always kind of lived quite local, and the university was quite linked with my high school, so I've done quite a few programs with the university through my school, so I kind of knew what it was about, and I really quite liked how helpful everyone is, how nice everyone really was. So that was kind of like my main reason for applying. And then I really liked their Go Abroad program as well, that it kind of gave a lot of opportunities, whether it was last semester abroad or even like taster sessions. You had quite a lot of international links, which was nice. So that was kind of my two main reasons for applying.
Brilliant. So lots of different reasons, from endorsements, just liking the city, to wanting to come to Scotland. So that's fantastic. So lots of different reasons for choosing to come to Glasgow. Now, we know that the last year has been a little bit different to maybe what you guys initially expected, with things kind of moving online. So what has that been like? What has it been like learning online? And did you feel supported by the university in that? Chloe, do you want to tell us about your experience first?
Yeah, the university has been really helpful with it. I think obviously the lecturers are kind of learning at the same time as we are, kind of what works, what doesn't. And they were really quite good at listening to us when we were saying kind of what maybe didn't work quite as well online. If we were saying it was maybe too much reading or things weren't kind of working as well over Zoom, they would listen to us and maybe change how they were teaching things, just kind of make sure it was definitely, we were getting the best education we could. They were really kind of taking our feedback on board, which was really great.
Brilliant, that's fantastic. Lily, what about you? How's your online experience been?
It was good, yeah. I think it is hard to say that, you're not in the uni itself. It's quite upsetting that we're not being able to be in like physically present in lecture halls, but I do think it definitely has its advantages. Especially for me, my lectures weren't previously recorded, which meant you had to just get your notes and that was it in the lecture, and what you missed, and you couldn't go back and get them again. But I think the benefits of it being pre-recorded is it gives you kind of more of a flexible structure to your day, so you can choose when you watch the lectures, and it's easy to catch up if you've missed, or if you've not been well one day. You don't have to be present there at that time that it's running, and they're recorded, so you can kind of pause it when you need to and take breaks. And if you're confused about something, you want to go back to it. I think that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people were quite favourable in terms of the pre-recorded lectures, so no, fantastic. Daniel, what about you? How has it been online with engineering?
Yeah, I think Chloe and Lily pretty much summarize how generally online classes are, and I'm pretty much the same place. Pre-recorded lectures do really help, especially when you have class at like 9 a.m. in the morning, and if you're in a different time zone, that actually does cause an issue, especially if you're not actually in the UK. So that do help. And Zoom is like as we're all learning, there are times where we as students actually help our lecturers try to solve weird Zoom issues, and it's always a good laugh. It's a good lively times. Engineering being a school where you have classes that reaches up to easily 200, 300 students, it's obviously going to be difficult for the lecturers to answer every question possible, but it has been coped well. There's new ways of doing it now. Instead of going to see the lecturers face to face, we have Zoom calls there's Zoom calls that we can go into, and we can speak to the lecturers and ask any questions we have. So it's been integrated well despite COVID, but all is well.
I think absolutely there's definitely been a bit of an attitude of we're all in this together. So that's great that you've been helping your lecturers manage that as well as you guys take it on board. But in terms of kind of support, how have you guys found the student support at Glasgow? Do you think it's got quite good support? Lily, do you have any experience with that?
Yeah, I'll just touch on a few examples, but at least in my experience, I felt that the Glasgow support service known as LEADS, which is Learning Enhancement and Academic Development, they've been really useful, especially in bridging that gap between school and university, because it can be quite daunting. And I don't think it is a massive change, but I do think it's really useful to have that service if you may be struggling with writing essays, or when it comes to writing the dreaded dissertation. They do hold specific classes for things like your introductions, methodologies, and literature reviews if you're confused about those. And we also have a career service at the university, so they help for when you're moving beyond the academy. You can actually book appointments individually with members of the career service, but also they come in every semester and they kind of tell you the services they provide, about websites that you can go to online if you're struggling and you want some more ideas. So
No, absolutely. Like I didn't realize, or I didn't engage with the career service until I did my postgrad, and it is something that I wish I'd kind of engaged with more in my undergraduate. And I think that's the case of a lot of kind of support services at the university, is that you really have to go and you have to engage with them if you're looking for additional support, but the support is there. So absolutely, LEADS is brilliant, and I definitely used LEADS as a student as well. And there's also other support as well. So we've got our counselling support, we've got the Student Representative Council. We also have name points of contact for specific student groups. So if you're care experienced, estranged, student care, forced migrant, we've got name points of contact that can support you from pre-application stage all the way throughout your degree. I myself am the name point of contact for student carers at the university. So that support is most definitely there. We also have our wellbeing officers who kind of provide that pastoral care the same way that you'd maybe have like a guidance teacher at school. So that support is most definitely there at university. I think there's a big focus when it comes to university of like being really independent, and it's becoming an independent learner. It's becoming more independent as a kind of adult almost. But I think a lot of people kind of confuse independent and alone. And what I always like to say to people is independent doesn't mean alone. There's loads of folk who can help you. But I think the big difference between school and university is you kind of have to put your hand up and say, I need a bit of help. But if you do, there's usually like 10 people around you that will say, I can absolutely help you. Or if they don't know how to help you, they'll help you find someone who will be able to. What about the kind of international experience? Daniel, how has that been for you? Are there lots of international students at the university?
Oh yeah, plenty. If I'm not mistaken, around 30% of the students here are actually international students. So it's pretty much, if you're walking down the main uni avenue, you're pretty much about to bump into an international student from probably halfway across the globe from where you're eventually from. When I first joined the uni, my first batch of friends I had were from Greece, Cyprus, America, and I think China. And that's almost all four corners of the world. So it's a good culture, good diverse culture here, and you definitely enjoy it. You learn new things from different culture, and you also learn the Scottish culture. So yeah.
That's brilliant, and well done for knowing your statistics. That's really impressive. How did you find that moving kind of country to come to university? How was that for you, Daniel?
I think I love traveling, so going around the world, learning new culture is quite second nature to me. But obviously, coming on your own for the first time for 4 years is going to be a different shift. I think the first thing I did to get used to it was to kind of just talk to local people, just understanding how life is here, talking to other students. I think that's also quite important. But for me, the shift wasn't too bad. I think the worst thing I felt was it's much colder here than back home in Malaysia. It's about 20 degrees at least different. So for me the biggest change. But once you're here for half a year, you probably got used to it, and you probably won't be used to your old climate. So
So it's a bit of a shift now going back home.
definitely, yeah.
Lily, what about you? I know it's maybe not as big as a move, but how was it coming from England to study in Scotland?
Yeah, I was going to kind of touch on actually that I come from quite a rural area, and I think that traveling to a big city like Glasgow was quite daunting at first, and I was quite worried about it. But I think that although it was a big step, and I was moving away from home and traveling, on the train about 2 hours, not that massive, and not like I come from London or anything, but it was still a big difference for me, and I'd never lived away from home before. So I think all those things considered, I was quite nervous to come, but I really had an amazing experience. And I think just remaining open-minded is really important, and just remembering that especially when you're in your first year, everyone's in it together and everyone's trying to be as friendly as possible. We all want to meet new people, and I think especially Glasgow, because it has so much green space, for me it was kind of a comfort, and I wasn't kind of so intimidated by being in a big urban city.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the kind of biggest advantages of our campus, is that we're still very much in Glasgow, but we do almost have this little corner surrounded by parks with the great campus. So it gives you that kind of feeling of almost being like in a town within the city. But you mentioned there about kind of meeting people. So how easy did you guys find it to make friends? Lily, do you want to tell us how easy that was coming up from England and meeting new folk?
Yeah, so I was actually in halls of residence in my first year, so I did get a big opportunity then to meet loads of new people. But I also think if you are traveling from home and you live at home, which most of my friends of my course are, I think there's like so many opportunities to meet new people. There's different clubs and societies. We have really good sports facilities, and we also have actually 4 unions at Glasgow. So we've got Queen Margaret Union, we've got Glasgow University Union, and the Sports Association, and the SRC, which is the Student Representative Council. So there's many different opportunities there to meet new people as well.
Brilliant, fantastic. Daniel, what about you? How easy did you find it to meet people?
Well, obviously, when I first came to uni, COVID really wasn't a thing, so we were meeting face to face. But however, 4 years down the line, and with COVID now here, I'm still actually meeting new friends. So usually after classes, if there are times where the classes are small enough, you pick up on who's actually in your classes, and you can look them up on the uni emails. You can pop them a message saying like to ask some questions, and you start getting new friends from there. So despite the time we're having now, it's actually still pretty easy. And I'm actually quite glad to say I've probably have friends from almost every continent in the world right now. So yeah, so that's good.
No, that's great. So you've managed to keep that going, even though we've not been as able to kind of meet up. What about you, Chloe? How have you found meeting new people and making friends while at university?
Yeah, I think like what the others were saying, it is really quite easy. Everyone's sort of in the same boat. Everyone just kind of does want to make friends. More so in first year, but even as you kind of keep going, you do kind of tend to meet different people, different kind of interests, especially as you go further through your degree. I know with law, we kind of specialise quite late on in our degree. So kind of as you go through your degree, you tend to meet friends that are kind of interested in what you're interested in when you're studying. But even with like different sports and societies, there's like a society for just about everything. So it's definitely really easy to meet people who are kind of like-minded and have the same interests.
Absolutely, and I would totally agree with you. I found that when I was doing my degree, that as you went on, your classes kind of got smaller and you started talking to people that you maybe didn't talk to in first year. But kind of speaking of first year and just that initial start at university, would you guys recommend going to Freshers Week, for example? Chloe, did you have any experience with Freshers Week? And what would you say to anybody who's maybe thinking about going?
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed Freshers Week. I definitely recommend going. There's kind of different events for everyone. So I know it kind of has a sort of reputation for kind of being like pubs and clubs and things, like going out at night. The university did quite a lot of events during the day as well. So if that kind of isn't really your thing, there was like quizzes on, there was like the sports teams were doing different things. There was definitely something for everyone. When I done it, I got like a wristband and I went out every single night, and it was a good chance just kind of meet different people. So the first couple of nights I went with people I already knew, but by kind of like the midweek I'd already made different friends at the university that I never knew before from loads of different places. So it's a really, really good way to kind of meet people and get to know what all the different unions and societies are about. Especially with like the unions, they put on their own events that are kind of based around what they're about. So obviously like the sports ones are kind of, they're during the day, it's like the sports stuff. The QNU and GUU are kind of more nighttime stuff. So it's definitely a really good way to kind of get a feel of what everything's about.
Brilliant. Lily, did you go to Freshers Week? Do you have anything that you'd want to say about the kind of benefits of going?
Yeah, I went to Freshers Week as well, and I like Chloe was saying, I think it's an amazing opportunity to meet new people, and it's an opportunity to just meet loads of different people, because obviously when you're in halls or you're at home, you're meeting people kind of in close contact with people on your course, but it does give you an opportunity to kind of meet people from loads of different backgrounds, loads of different cultures, just an opportunity to make new friends and have new experiences. Also, I would say that Freshers isn't just for first years. If you come in second year or third year and you want an opportunity to meet some new people and make additional experiences, it's also an opportunity for you guys as well.
Brilliant, absolutely. So yeah, you can kind of just join in regardless of what year you're in. I did the same thing even if you're coming up for a postgrad. A lot of you mentioned like joining clubs and societies, and I know that each of you are involved in those. So do you want to just talk about the kind of clubs and societies that you've been involved with and what's available at Glasgow? Chloe, do you want to start us off?
So the main society I'm still involved in is the Law Society. It's obviously specific to the law students. They kind of organise like the law ball. They'll do different things throughout the year to kind of integrate kind of first years with like the other years. So it's a good way to kind of get to know people in other stages of the degree. It's a really kind of just a good way to kind of make connections. They'll do like networking events as well. So kind of like a social aspect and like a kind of professional aspect to it. We get to kind of network with different firms that are quite local and make connections that way. And then a couple of the sports teams, I've never kind of formally joined any sports teams, but they do have a lot of nights out that I've kind of crashed through friends. If I know they're going, I'll kind of show up and go anyway. So it's another really good way to kind of meet people.
No, absolutely. So that's great because you're getting to mix your kind of subject, but also the social side of it. And it's good to know that you can also crash things if you're not fully involved in them. Lily, what about you? Have you been involved in any clubs or societies?
Yeah, I've gone to quite a few throughout my time at Glasgow. But it's also, I just thought it was important to say that you shouldn't feel that in your first year or in the first semester that's the only opportunity you have to join a club. Especially in the second semester, they have refresher sessions. So if you maybe didn't have a chance to join a club in your first semester, or you were worried that you didn't have many friends and you wanted to join it with someone else, and by your second semester you kind of felt like you felt more confident and wanted to, then you can still join then. And you can also join mid-semester as well, so don't be put off by the fact that you haven't joined in your first week. I know that when you first start university it can all be quite a daunting experience and there's so many things happening, so don't feel put off by the fact that you've not joined in your first week.
No, that's really, really good advice there, because I think there can be that pressure, especially when you're first here, like I need to join everything, and sometimes you just need a little bit of time to settle. So it's good to know that you can kind of get involved at any stage of being at Glasgow. Daniel, what about you? Have you been involved in any clubs or societies while at the university?
Yeah, actually I was involved in two clubs of society for quite a while. I think the first one that a lot of engineers know of is UofG Racing. It's a Formula student team, and honestly, if you're not an engineer, you can join. I'm pretty sure most of my teammates in the first year were actually non-engineering students. So don't put out the fact that's just for engineering. It's actually not. So I was part of UofG Racing for a good year of a good period of 2 years, I think, and we went to compete down in Silverstone, which is it's actually a really big experience, and that's actually one of our clubs of the 300 we have. And I think the other one that I do a lot is fencing. I fence competitively for the university, and it's actually great fun because you actually, if you're competing, you actually travel around UK with with your team and compete against other uni and trying to be the best university in the UK, and Glasgow have actually got the best in the trophy league for 2 years in a row. So it's great fun. You learn, and you don't even need to be training for years to be that. A few of the teammates join the uni and join the team pretty much. So it's great fun. It's great for your CV as well, and it's a great way to make friends.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, definitely clubs and societies, it's not just about kind of making friends, but it does look amazing then when you're going out for different jobs, because the amount of skills that you're gaining through being involved in those. And the thing to highlight as well is if you come to Glasgow and there's something that you do that we don't have a club or society for, you can absolutely set one up, because I know that's what my brother did. He did kendo before he came to university. There wasn't a kendo club when he started. He set one up and it's still running, and he left the uni years and years ago, so you can leave a little bit of legacy with that as well. So absolutely, there's something literally for everyone, and if we don't have it, you can set it up and there will be other people who want to join in, trust me. So moving on to kind of academic questions that we've had, and we've had quite a few questions about people asking, well, what if I apply to do something and I don't really like doing it? Now, Lily, you've already mentioned the kind of flexible degree structure, so do you want to maybe chat about that?
Yeah, I think this is quite important for geography as well, because geography and psychology are two quite complicated degree programs because they stretch across all three different colleges. So we've got MA with the College of Arts, got BSc, which is the College of Science, and also the College of Social Science. So in terms of geography, as an example, in your first and second year, you would study geography alongside two other subjects. Now, it isn't until third and fourth year that you actually conduct your honours. So this is where the results that you obtain actually count towards your degree. And this means that up to second year, you have the option to actually shift the subject that you've chosen. But where it gets a bit complicated is, although you're studying three subjects in first and second year, you only take, you take two subjects that you've taken in first year to second year, and then you switch the third subject out for another, and it gives you an opportunity to try something new, but also it means that you can only take either your chosen subject, mine being geography, or the second subject to honours level. So it's important to remember that what you choose in first year is kind of the subjects that you'd have the options of choosing for your honours. But it's really important just to know that even taking those three subjects gives you such an opportunity to try out new things. And I think, when you come to university, you might be kind of not completely sure what you want to do. And, I was the same. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I think it's amazing to have that opportunity to kind of shift, if your tastes change, or you might get to uni and start learning something, you think, yeah, I don't want this to be my career anymore, which is completely fine. And I think there's nothing wrong with changing your opinion or your direction within your degree.
Absolutely. I think our kind of the flexible degree structure at Glasgow is like one of them, is really amazing, because I know as a student, I think I kind of pushed it to its limits of how much I could change my degree, but I think it's really, really great, like you're saying, for someone who you maybe know the kind of subject area you're interested in, but you're not 100% sure that that's exactly what you want to do for the next 4 years. So it does give you a huge amount of flexibility, and you can't go too crazy. There are limitations. Like I came in to do history of art, so I couldn't do like history of art and medicine, but I could do other subjects within the College of Arts, and that's a huge range of subjects. So it does really give you a bit of flexibility. So if you do want to explore a little bit, you do have that freedom to do so. And I think it is absolutely, definitely one of the kind of biggest advantages of being a student at Glasgow. So we chatted a little about the kind of difference between being in school and being at university, but how different are they? Like, how did you find that transition? Chloe, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you found that transition of moving from school to university?
Yeah, I think the main difference for me was kind of how it was timetabled. So obviously when you're still in school, everything is timetabled for you, kind of every hour you're told, specifically where you need to be between 9 and 4. And when I got to uni, it was kind of a bit more scattered, like had a lot more free time. It was kind of split for me. I would have lectures, which would be about an hour or 2 hours long, and that would be like the whole of my year, so about 300 people. And then we'd have seminars, which again were about an hour or two long, but there would only maybe be about 20 people in them. And so we'd have seminars every other week, whereas lectures were every single week. So on some weeks I could maybe be there, I'd have 5 lectures and 5 seminars, or other weeks I would just have like my 5 lectures. So it did kind of vary from week to week. And I would always kind of normally have a day off. Every year I've had at least kind of like one day off. And as I've gone through my degree, I've had less and less contact. So it's kind of, they build you up to be able to do it on your own. And so kind of in first year was kind of quite led, although you had a lot of free time to do what you kind of had to do and kind of schedule yourself for studying. As I've gone on, it's kind of been more and more up to you to schedule yourself, but they don't kind of throw you in at the deep end for that. And you don't kind of realize it's happening until you look back and you're like, oh, that's what they were doing. But definitely kind of a lot more time management's involved.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight as well when it comes to university, because I think a lot of people, when they're applying, they think they're just going to throw me into the deep end and like get me to do a dissertation my first year. And in a way, it's really similar to school. Like you kind of build up. So every year, you know, your essays get a little bit longer. You do a little bit more independent work until you get to fourth year. And like you said, Chloe, you kind of realize, actually, that's what you were getting me ready for in first and second year. So it is very much like school in that way, that you do kind of build up to it, and we don't just kind of throw you into the deep end and say, well, off you go. But time management, that is a really, really valuable thing to highlight, because I think that is the biggest difference. Like in school, you're so used to, like you said, from like 9 to 3. And even simple things like, for me, it was the fact that you don't have a set lunch. You know how at school, like everybody would have lunch at this time. At uni, you kind of have to remind yourself, actually, now it's my time to eat. Okay, brilliant. We've chatted about kind of studying and those aspects of it, but what about accommodation? What is student accommodation like? Lily, did you stay in student accommodation while you were studying?
Yeah, I did. So I think I'm going to touch a little bit about the Glasgow uni provided accommodation, and then we're going to talk about private accommodation afterwards. But the university does offer a big spectrum of different accommodations. I think there's about 7 that the university provides. So you have accommodation near the Botanic Gardens, and that's about a 20-minute walk from the university. And there's Queen Margaret Residence, which is flats of around 5 people, and they have ensuite, and you can choose either single sex or mixed accommodation. And I think recently they've had some of the rooms have actually been done out, so it is a bit more modern than when I stayed there almost 4 years ago now. But so it's great at Queen Margaret. There's you're right next to the Botanic, so you get to walk through that to get to university. And I'd say the drawback about Queen Margaret is that it can be quite pricey, but you shouldn't be put off by that. There's many different accommodations on offer as well. So there's Murano Student Village, and that has flats of between 4 and 5, and also 10 and 12. They do not have ensuite, but Murano is really well known for being a place where you can meet loads of different people. It's a very big accommodation compared to the rest. So if you want an opportunity to meet new people, then I would say that's probably the accommodation for you. We also have a catered accommodation known as Wolfson Hall, and that is about a 45-minute walk from the university, so you would more than likely have to get a bus to university. And it's also right next to the veterinary school, so I think it's really good and really recommended for vet med students. It's also next to our Barscube sports complex, so if you've joined any sports societies, then it would be right next to that. So that would be a draw as well for anyone that's into sports. I think as well we also have Cairncross House, which they provide, I think it's twin bedrooms and single bedrooms, large and small. There are also shared bathrooms and shared kitchens, but I think that they're a lot more affordable, so a lot of people are attracted to that. And then we also have Kelvin Hofgate, which is ensuite as well as Queen Margaret, but it's a bit less than Queen Margaret, and it's also a 50-minute walk, which is a bit closer to university.
Brilliant. That's a fantastic overview. I think that's better than our accommodation brochure there of literally all the student accommodations. But absolutely, there's a huge variety. So thank you for bringing that up, because I think a lot of people think that everything's exactly the same. Kind of student accommodation means one thing, but there's lots of different options, and you can really pick something that suits you. Now, Daniel, you stayed in private student accommodation. Is that right? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience of that?
Yeah, so in my first year, I was placed at Wolfson Hall, and I wasn't really liking the idea of staying a bit too further away from the uni, seeing it's my first year and coming from a different country. So I went around looking for a private accommodation. So I stayed in this place called Dunuskin Mill, which is just about a 5-10 minutes walk south of the uni. And that is only one of many private accommodation around the university. There's a lot of different companies, such as Fresh Student Living, Unite Students, Downing Students, among others. And they're scattered around Glasgow from West End all the way to the city centre. So it's not only a good opportunity to meet up with other students from uni, but it's also good to meet up with friends who are actually studying in the other universities in Glasgow. So it actually gives you a bit more diverse feel. So as you're looking at other uni like Strathclyde and Caledonian. While at the same time, being that it's a little bit nearer to the uni in points where it's just on the south side, so you might be able to walk to uni nearer. And it's near to Stevenson Building, which is our state-of-the-art gym facility situated inside the university campus region.
Brilliant way of bringing in the university gym into the conversation, because it is pretty spectacular. Like, I think a lot of people don't expect the university gym to be as good as it is, but it is absolutely fantastic. You mentioned kind of the other universities and the fact that there's kind of options in the city centre. How easy is it to travel around Glasgow? What was your experience of that?
It's honestly pretty easy. So we have the subway that runs underground. It's a circle line, so it's not as diverse as what you will see in London. It's a smaller two-direction tube that goes around the circle all the way to the city centre, down to the south side, and across the west side. It's good enough to get you around the main part of Glasgow. Let's say you want to go to the city centre from the uni main building. There's plenty of options. You can take the bus. Route 4 and 4A will guide you straight into the city centre. You can rent a bike. I think it's called Next Bike, if I'm not mistaken. You can ride the bike all the way in. You can take the subway. The train stations are about 5 minutes walk, either to Kelvin Bridge or Kelvin Hall Station. Or you can even take the train from Partick Station, which is about 15 minutes walk away. And that can lead you all the way to Edinburgh even. So you don't actually have to go all the way to the city centre to go to Edinburgh. You can actually just take a train from Partick.
No, absolutely. I think the travel connections are really, really great. And like you said, it's not just about Glasgow, but if you wanted to go and explore a bit further afield, see a bit more of Scotland, those transport links are there and they're really, really close by. We've had a few questions about scholarships and bursaries. Now, I don't think any of you guys have had any experience of applying for those. But for anybody who is interested, we do have a dedicated webpage on our scholarships where basically you can type in what subject you're going to be studying, what level you're going to be studying at, whether you're a Scottish applicant or international student, and that will come up with the list of all available scholarships and bursaries within that area. So if that is something anybody is interested in, please do check out that page, and the address is at the bottom of the screen at the moment, because we do have kind of dedicated scholarships and bursaries for different subject areas, different students, things like our talent scholarships for Scottish applicants, but we also have things that are dedicated towards subjects. So for example, specific engineering scholarships. So if that is something you're interested in, then please do check that website. But looking at kind of thinking about scholarships and bursaries and thinking about money, how expensive is it to live in Glasgow? Lily, since you came up from England and you kind of saw the city, what was your experience of that?
Yeah, I think the expense is something to be aware of and to take in mind. So I had a sister who studied in Newcastle, and I was kind of shocked at the difference in price for accommodation in Glasgow compared to Newcastle. I don't think it's something to be put off by, but it is just something to be aware of. And, it's always important to kind of structure your funds and kind of make sure that you plan for things, even things like weekly shops. It's quite easy when you're going out with friends or nights out and stuff to kind of lose track of how much money you're spending. So, it's always good to have kind of plans in place. But I also think it's quite easy to be tactical about where you live in Glasgow, and there are definitely some areas that are more expensive for accommodation, post halls of residence. When you're living in the city in tenement flats, Those in Hill Head can be a bit more expensive because they're right next to the uni. But if you get a flat in somewhere like Finniston or Partick, which is only about a 15-minute walk from the university, and it's really close to Calvin Grove Park, so it's nice to walk through that to the university as well. They can be a lot less expensive. So yeah.
No, absolutely, yeah. So once you're out of halls, there are kind of different opportunities, but a really good advice as well about kind of budgeting, because I think that's something that you do have to be aware of when you come to university. And there's loads of places that do offer kind of support with that as well. So we've at the university, but also usually whatever bank you have an account with will have like an advice center, and if you're a student, you can go and they can help you with that kind of management of just thinking ahead, because you do have to start thinking about things like your weekly shop, your accommodation. So it's worthwhile planning that out early on and just being aware of it. So that's really great advice there, Lily. And we chatted about, you mentioned kind of like going out to eat and things. So are there like any good places to eat or drink or get a coffee on campus? Chloe, do you want to kind of tell us what your favorites are?
Yeah, so with like on the campus itself, there's quite a lot of different places. There's the cafe in this 1A Square, I think it's called. It's in like the main building. They do really good food. They're kind of more like meals they have there. And then there's a cafe in the GUU as well, which is really good. I quite like. They also have a coffee shop underneath there. There's a couple kind of like cafes within the library. It's kind of dotted all over really. They're quite good. They kind of have different things going on there. And then if you kind of leave campus a little bit, kind of Ashton Lane, Byers Road area, kind of diversity has been mentioned quite a bit. And I know there's lots of different food options there that reflect the diversity in culture. So just about every country really, different kind of foods from different countries, different continents, wherever, they're definitely represented kind of quite near the university. You don't really need to go very far to find your favorite foods. It's definitely going to be available nearby. I really struggle to find something that isn't somehow represented nearby the uni in time or food.
Absolutely, we've got loads of, so that's good to kind of highlight that we've got loads of options on campus, but also if you go a little bit further afield and explore the West End, there's lots of different options and lots of different cuisines and different, so really there's something for everybody. So absolutely brilliant. We've had a few questions come in about having part-time jobs and studying, and I think all of you have had part-time jobs while you've been studying. So do you want to just talk about what your experience of that has been like? Daniel, do you want to just go first and let us know what it's like having a part-time job while being a student?
Yeah, I think I had the opportunity to work for the School of Engineering as a demonstrator, as a tutor. So each year, the uni will hire demonstrator and tutors for the engineering school. I can't say for the rest of the other schools, but I can surely say for the engineering school. So we work on a weekly basis, basically helping students in different courses from maths to dynamics and thermodynamics. And it's great because it gives you chances of meeting new people and meeting new friends. But at the same time, it helps you actually refresh your mind before exam times. So it's a give and take for those type of things.
Brilliant. So that's fantastic. So you've actually managed to find work on campus and at the university. Lily, what about you? Have you had part-time work and how have you found that?
Yeah, so all three of us here today are actually student ambassadors to the university. So there's a part-time job within that, and there's not loads of places available, but they do quite frequently open up spaces, and that role involves kind of giving campus tours to offer holders, and also doing things like telephone campaigns with offer holders, and of course Q&A sessions like this. It's also important to bear in mind, I think, that the semesters are not actually really long at university, and you might choose to stay in the city that you're studying in all year round, and if you do, then there's so many different bars and cafes and restaurants, like Chloe mentioned, that there's probably many opportunities to get a part-time job within that. But also, like myself, I did come home during the summer, and I actually kept on a part-time job I'd had at school. So maybe it's important to bear in mind that you might, if you currently have a job at home, maybe try and keep that in the loop and don't kind of leave it straight away, just in case that you want that to fall back on in the summer.
That's fantastic. So you've actually been able to keep the job that you had at school throughout university. So that is brilliant. Chloe, about you, have you had a part-time job and how have you found that with balancing your studies as well?
Yeah, so like the others were saying, I've been able to kind of work with jobs through the university, which has been really good. I've also had a job that I've kept. I've been quite lucky that I didn't have to move. I've always lived in Glasgow, so I've kept the same job I've had since I was in high school. So I've worked in fast food. I normally work about 16 to 24 hours a week. It just kind of really depended on what I've got going on. They're quite good at being flexible. I think I find that with quite a lot of my friends that kind of work in like fast food, they tend to be quite flexible, so it's a good place to look for jobs there. It's definitely, maybe you have a little bit less free time, but it's definitely manageable. I wouldn't kind of stress about it if you do find you have to work to be able to, you know, come to uni. It's definitely a doable thing. It's just, again, a little bit more kind of time management.
I think that's really, really reassuring for people to hear, because I think sometimes there's that worry of, can I balance a part-time job with studying? And I think you're absolutely right, Chloe. And I think even just looking at all three of you here today, the fact that you've all had part-time work while you've studied, I think it's becoming kind of the norm that students do have part-time jobs to help support themselves. And if, as long as you do have those good time management skills, I think that's what's coming through in the Q&A today, is good time management is really important for being a student. And as long as you have that planning and you've got those, and you can kind of plan ahead and know how much you can do, it's absolutely doable. Like, even I had a part-time job while I was studying. I think it's just like you guys are saying, it's kind of the norm. And it's great as well just to highlight the fact that there are opportunities to work within the university itself. So like you guys, like you mentioned, are all student ambassadors. But even if you go to our career service, they sometimes offer internships within the university as well. And even just around, like Chloe mentioned, you know, working in fast food, working in some of the places around campus. I know loads of students that work in like the retail in the city centre, because there's loads of opportunities as well. So absolutely, for anybody who's sitting there wondering, is it possible to have a part-time job and study, as long as you plan ahead and you have good time management. And like Chloe, you mentioned, you know, there are weeks where you can maybe take on a few extra shifts, but there'll be weeks where you maybe need to take that back because you might have an assignment due in or your exams are coming up. So it is absolutely doable. It's just, I just need to kind of plan ahead. And Lily, great advice there. Both Lily and Chloe have got jobs you had while at school, so that's maybe something to think about, especially if you're local and you're coming to the university, that you don't necessarily need to give that job up. So we've had a few questions as well, and about the weather. Glasgow obviously is quite famous for maybe not the sunniest of weather. So what has the weather been like? Is it true that it always rains in the summer? Daniel, as the international student, I will let you take that one.
Question is, if it rains in the summer. Well, pretty much it rains whenever it wants to rain. The UK in general are known for having not exactly the brightest of weathers, but Glasgow specifically, it can rain 1 minute, it can stop, and it can be absolutely bright sunny the next minute. My dad always told me before I came to the UK that he has experienced having 4 different weathers in a span of about 10 minutes. He had snow, he had hail, he had sunny, bright skies, and then he had rain not too long after that. I haven't been that lucky to experience all those 4 in one go, but I have, usually what happens is, if it's raining out there, just have a cup of tea, wait for about 5 minutes, and it's very likely that the weather would have changed back to something else. Could be really sunny, but it's a really good laugh. It's a different experience, as I said. Me coming from a tropical country, all I see is thunderstorms and absolute pouring rain, and it's nothing compared to that. The rains are usually quite light, and it's more like it's spitting water down onto your face instead of trying to blow you off the road. But obviously, if anybody have heard, we had the Beast of the East a few years back, and that was when absolute crazy snowstorm came in. That was actually quite fun because snow build up, you can have snow fights, and again, I've never really seen snow back home, so it's kind of experience for me. Obviously, if you have seen snow before, you're probably not going to get as amazed as what I saw it as, but it's still a fun thing to experience, especially when you're out with your friends and just experiencing the snow and the rain and the wind, and just having a laugh at the weather.
That's very true. The one thing you can always talk about is the weather, because it is very, very changeable. But it's a really great attitude there of just like, and to be fair, I think that's the thing, because it is so changeable. We just kind of get on with it. And like you said, you kind of have a cup of tea and hope that it stops. And if it doesn't, just invest in a really, really good umbrella before you come to the university. So people kind of asking about pieces of advice that you would give them. So what are some tips that you wish you would have known before coming to the University of Glasgow? Lily, what do you wish you would have known?
I think personally, probably something to do with not trying to get too worried about grades and assessments in your first years. I think that Scotland is really at an advantage that they offer 4 years, and it's not a complete practice in your first year. Obviously, grades do matter to an extent, but it's also, I think you should take that year as an opportunity to kind of accept that you are kind of moving from a bridge from school to university, and it can be quite a big and daunting change, and just kind of appreciate that it's going to take time to get to grips with things, and that first year is really an opportunity to meet new people and have as many incredible experiences as you can. Being a fourth year student, I think I'm really appreciating that now, that grades do matter, but also your first and second years at university don't count towards honours. So I would really kind of encourage you to make as many experiences with people as you can, and just remember that university is more than just grades.
Absolutely. I think that's really great advice as well, just kind of being kind to yourself and maybe not putting too much pressure on yourself in those first couple of years. And also just remembering that everybody's kind of in the same boat. And again, I'll go back to what I said earlier on, that if you are struggling with anything, the key thing I think when you come to university is to kind of put your hand up and say, I'm really struggling with this, because sometimes you are in massive lectures, you might not notice, other people might not notice that, but if you put your hand up and say, I'm actually struggling with this, there will be someone who will help you. And that first year really is there as a transitional year so that you can get used to that level of work. So no, that is some fantastic advice there, Lily. Daniel, what about you? What advice would you give to someone coming to the University of Glasgow?
I think the main two things I would say is, the first thing is try out as many sports and enjoying as many society as you can. Don't be afraid to just go in and try to enjoy yourself, because again, university is the first time you're gonna really be independent adults, and trying to grow yourself as a person. So have fun, enjoy yourself, and see what fits you best. And my second advice would be, do not be afraid to make mistakes. We're all human after all. One small little dip in performance doesn't really mean anything. It could just be how it is. Just take your time, regroup yourself, and push on again, because it's not a sprint. It's actually an absolutely long marathon. The few years you're going to be here, it will pass by quick, but it will actually feel like it is going to be a very long journey for you to go through. And one more thing I would say, bring a raincoat.
Yeah, absolutely. Good raincoat, good umbrella, and a good pair of flat shoes for running between different lectures. But no, absolutely. And I think that's really great that you've kind of highlighted that again, that, just be kind to yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Really enjoy it, and absolutely take on the opportunity of all the amazing sports clubs and facilities and societies that the University of Glasgow has to offer. Chloe, what about you? What tips would you give to anybody?
I think quite similar to what the others have said, especially with grades. I know especially if you're going to university, you're probably used to getting quite good grades. I know when I was in first year, I never got higher than a C. And had I done that in high school, it would have been like the end of the world. But really, when I got to uni, it was that was okay. It was actually good. If you were getting, as long as you're passing, you're doing okay, especially in first year, it will get better. I think most people's grades tend to go upward. If you start like a C, you will eventually get those, A's, if you just kind of stick with it. And another thing as well, if something even looks remotely interesting, I would say give it a try. The university has given me so many different opportunities. If I've received an email, I've just kind of said yes to it. And through that, I've been able to kind of travel to different countries and stuff through the university, which has been really great. And also some of the things that I maybe kind of put off, I've said, I'll do that in fourth year, I'll do that kind of my last year. I'm now not getting to do because of COVID. So I would definitely say when the opportunity comes, just take it.
Brilliant. Absolutely. And highlighting the fact that there is that opportunity for things like study abroad and going abroad for like 2 weeks, a week. And I would absolutely agree with you, because that is something that you're not necessarily always going to have the opportunity to do. And the fact that it can be part of your degree and it can be part of your course, and it's not like you're having to take a year out, you're doing it while you're studying, is so fantastic. And definitely that's one thing that I would encourage everybody. If you can take part in that, then absolutely do so, because it also looks amazing later on your CV as well. So it's a fantastic thing to do. So brilliant piece of advice there, you guys. Absolutely amazing. And just the kind of final question to finish our Q&A off today is, what is the best thing about being a student at the University of Glasgow? Chloe, do you want to tell us what for you is the best thing?
I think just the whole community of Glasgow. I think I've never been told no if I've asked for help, or just kind of wants to talk to anybody. Like, everyone is so friendly, welcoming, and accommodating. They will definitely kind of, if you ask for it, they'll definitely try their best to do it, whether it is the staff or even other people in your classes. Like, I've never kind of come across anyone that's cold. They're all really, really nice and welcoming, which has been really great throughout the degree.
Absolutely. I think there's, as cheesy as it sounds, I think that's one of my favorite things about being at Glasgow, is that there is that Team UofG mentality. It does feel like totally like a community on campus. And even the last year, where we've maybe not seen each other as much face to face, there's still definitely that feeling of togetherness and community. And like you said, if you put your hand up and say, I need help with something, no one is going to say no to you. And go back to what I said earlier, if they don't know how to help you, they'll help you find someone who does. Lily, what about you? What's your favorite thing?
Honestly, I think just proving what Chloe said and how true it is. I was going to almost say word for word what she had said. I think, just being part of what is a really diverse and welcoming community is so important, and it's something I feel really proud of. And it's honestly so sad to be coming to the end of my degree, because I would love to continue to study here forever and live in Glasgow forever, because I think it's just such an amazing city, and you'll not be disappointed if you come here.
So what's your favorite thing about Glasgow as a city then?
I honestly think probably the community mentality, and being, especially where the university is, it feels almost like a town rather than a city, which I think, as someone who's come from a really small village, it's really nice to have that. And, walking in the streets, sometimes people say hello to you. And, whenever you're in cafes and bars, especially now they've opened up, everyone is just so friendly and welcoming. So not just inside the university, but also off campus as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Glasgow has that reputation of being a really, really friendly city, and I think it's definitely true. And again, going back to what we said, the West End kind of feels like its own little town within the city, so you really do get the best of both worlds with that. Daniel, what about you? What's been your favourite thing?
I think it's really funny that all three of us actually thought of the same thing, being in such a nice community. But besides community-based, I think one thing I really enjoy is actually meeting friends from around the world, and not only students from my courses or even students in general. My lecturers are now my friends, and I keep in touch with them, even though they know I'm about to leave, and we promise to keep in touch as we go on. But another thing I really love about the uni is how the uni has this world changes mentality, and not only are we aiming to change the world, but they also improving their facilities and the way they do things. They listen to our feedback and improve on their facilities and courses. One of the things that you might know of is the new James McKeown learning hub. If you have not seen it yet, it is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. And when I first joined uni 4 years back, that building that's where it used to stand was just being demolished. And 4 years down the line, I have the opportunity to take a look inside and see how it has been brought up from scratch. And I see how the uni is constantly trying to develop their facilities for us to improve our skills, and it just amazed me.
No, absolutely, and well done for bringing up the campus development, because it is fantastic, and the new building is just amazing. And it's really, really great answers there, guys. Thank you so much for taking part today. Thank you to everybody who submitted questions for us, and thank you for anybody who's been listening to us answer your questions and chat about what it's like to be at the University of Glasgow. I think you can tell we all absolutely love being here, and we all really love being part of the University of Glasgow community. So hopefully, if you're watching this and you do have an offer from the University of Glasgow, you will be part of that community really, really soon. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you in future as part of Team UofG.
celebrate with us and share that UofG feeling.